come true.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Everett Weber Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk Program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down, so when you're getting on the show, you're well organized and you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, to respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards. But we always encourage you to be always forceful with your point. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. And you can also join us on YouTube via our YouTube channel. You click YouTube, subscribe, and you go to Vaughan Radio, or by our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio. Tonight, Conrad Nile Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleague, Mr. Stanley, good evening, and to everyone who is in tune to this program using the various means of today's technology. Webo, I'm happy to be here as usual. I've got a clean slate tonight, so I'm open to any kind of discussion, any discussion that you may put on the table, Webo. I'm happy to be here again, and thank you for having me.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webo, and good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly those people who are gracious people of Nevis, and those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin on Facebook and YouTube. And we, of course, will always bring credible information to you, through to you from St. Kitts Nevis. And if we have from further afield, we will always do likewise. And Webo, there are just a few things. When the program gets rolling, we'll get them on the table. Good evening, Webo.
Okay, I got a couple of things I want to get started with this evening. Well, two main things. The First Caribbean International Bank, that is leaving Nevis, the branch, and it seems as if it's a vexing issue. There are a lot of queries, complaints, and if you go to Charlestown from any day in the week now, they see long lines of persons standing out there. And I took the opportunity to speak to a few of them. And also, but more particular, I like to focus on, I'm in receipt of a response that one customer sent to the bank, and it suggested that it was an open letter which is sent to the bank, and he was expressing not only how he felt, but a number of other customers who he was in touch with as well. So I want to share that. If it is necessary, I perhaps can mention the name of the customer, but I don't think it is necessary at this point, because it's just a matter of having a discussion and looking at it in the public's view in terms of a corporate citizen and the way the customers felt, or some of them at least, felt they handled the matter of leaving. I think that we had discussed it briefly here on the program a couple of weeks ago when news first broke. So I wanted to look at that particular, and I'm going to look at the letter also that the bank sent to its customers, and then that response from the particular customer. Now, it's very brief, so I'll ask you to basically bear with me as I look at it. The letter from the bank says, dear client, CIBC Caribbean wishes to advise that its branch on Nevis will be closed permanently with effect from November 30th, 2020. From that date, all banking operations, including payments on loan facilities, will be conducted at our branch at the Circus in Bastia, St. Kitts. Please therefore contact our business banking to discuss arrangements for managing your facilities out of the Bastia branch going forward, or any other alternative arrangements you may wish to put in place. That's the end of the correspondence. And this customer wrote, September 29, 2020, Dear FCIB, apart from the curtness of your letter, in which you informed of the closure of your Nevis branch, you did not even offer a kind word to say sorry for the inconvenience and or thanks for doing business with us. Not nice, FCIB, just not nice at all. I find it somewhat dehumanizing. You've treated your clients like account numbers in your computer system. Shame on you. Be assured that the first opportunity I get, I will move my business elsewhere, and be further assured that I would not be that naive to think that my doing so would matter to you at all, not one bit. Computers have no feelings, and it's signed by the FCBI customer, Charlestown Nevis, and with a footnote. Please feel free to pass this message to whoever within my name appended thereto. So, that was the letter. That is a response, at least by one customer. Any thoughts?
We must begin to understand that the banking industry is here to provide a service and also to generate business, and as a business entity they must take into consideration all the aspects of business relations so that they can grow their business and ultimately continue to serve people. Truly, the corporate business, which sometimes might be governed by shareholders further afield, maybe not even local shareholders, and in that regard, these are the people who in fact created the entity and ultimately would be able to use their expertise, finances, and the whole 9 yards to make a determination as to how this entity goes forward. Fortunately, these entities that operate domestically or within our space, St. Kitts Nevis, they do employ most of our people, meaning Kittitians and Nevisians, and therefore they provide employment, and from that employment we do understand that it enhances our quality of life. Being in that type of industry, banking, and therefore it's a nice job. But when you look at what transpired with reference to the bank telling people or its customers that they will be serviced out of Bastia, it creates a certain degree of hardship for some people who may not have the wherewithal to go to Bastia if you have a mortgage or a car loan or a student loan or other products that the bank has actually brought to the fore to garner business in our jurisdiction, in this particular space. The bank has an obligation to, in fact, get people who are truly knowledgeable with expansive and comprehensive letter writing to bring to the table or to the fore all the aspects regarding business, customer relations, as the case might be. But for whatever reason, the bank has decided to leave this space in Nevis in particular, but they're still operating in St. Kitts. But again, when you look at the inconvenience that it brings about for those customers who have banked with them for many years, and I am almost certain that these are people who not only stayed with Caribbean International Bank, but also they were probably customers of Barclays, which occupied that space in Charlestown. So in that regard, I believe that a letter of apology should be sent back to this customer, and more broadly to the many people who have banked at that facility over the many years. The customer who wrote this letter is not alone, and in that regard, other people would feel gutted almost for having this institution just pull the rug from all of them. Sure, that particular customer will go to another institution, but depending on the type of banking relationship he had with Caribbean International Bank, it might be quite comprehensive. It might be more than just a passbook account or a checking account. If they've got a mortgage, it simply means that they would probably want to move that mortgage from this particular...
Yeah, but here's a question though. The customer obviously is irate at how the bank treated a customer. For instance, the customer said, you could have at least said, sorry for the inconvenience or something to that effect. So the question I'd like to know, and I'll go to Naya because I understand that you made your point in terms of, in reference to that. Now, the customer, you think, and perhaps other customers, the expectation is perhaps too high or different from what the
average expectation, normal
Yes.
expectation, Webo. I think the bank acts seriously irresponsible. I think with great disregard to their customers. I'm sure they had some customers for a very long time, Webo. I can't believe that simple letter said it all, in a sense, to people who has been saving their money there and enjoying the convenience like everyone does. You know, they come to town and do their banking. A lot of people are not online doing that type of stuff as yet. I mean, according to the letter, I'm not even hearing anything about online and where to go. But I suppose they said to call their banking people and further information would be given. But whoever made this decision, to me, does not have much respect for the Nevis-based customers. Maybe
I'm going to interrupt you and I'm going to get right back. Good evening. You won't away and thanks for holding.
Good evening, Mr. Weber.
Yes.
Good evening to your panel.
Good evening.
I'm calling from St. Kitts. I have a very serious situation. I called some weeks ago concerning the situation, Mr. Weber.
Yeah, why don't we do this though? I'm looking, Naya is into making a particular point. I thought you wanted to weigh in on that point.
I'll call back on you.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, thank you. Naya, go ahead.
Yes, Bebo. Serious disregard for the Nevis customer base. I'm not sure if they are that few in numbers, but I very much doubt that. And the volume of business I very much doubt that also. But to me, they're dealing with the Nevis customer as if they are not very important to the bank. Quite insensitive, I thought, knowing the nature of banking, and of course there is technology out there, and you can access your account. But I think with such a short notice, somehow the letter Webo seems very, very insensitive. I totally agree with the customer. I totally agree. I mean, they're treating their customers like numbers in a computer, and oftenly in today's world, we tend to do that quite often. Webo, many jobs and many services and many trades, I suppose, will be replaced by technological advancement, and I find humanity.
Okay, now let me get this to see if. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening.
Good evening, Webo.
Yes, you're on the air. Could you go ahead?
Yes. Good evening to you and your two guests, Naya and Mr. Stanley.
Caller, you want to do me a favor, because what is happening? I think this line that you called on, it was giving us some problem. It is not 100%. So, can you call the alternate number? Call right back.
Yes, I will.
Call it. For instance, if you call 1700 just now, call 1616.
Thank you. I will.
Okay. All right. Okay. We seem to be having an issue there with the with that line. So the other line is cleaner. So that's why I asked the caller. Okay. Here he is. Good evening. Thanks for holding.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
That's much better. Yes, go ahead.
That's better?
Yes, much better.
Yes. Good evening to you and your panel. Naya.
Good evening.
Edric Stanley. This is Michael Perkins. Webo, I respect the fact that you chose not to mention the author of the letter to First Caribbean in response to their letter of yesterday's date. But for full disclosure, I am the person who wrote back to First Caribbean, and have since copied that letter to quite a number of persons, including upper management of First Caribbean, as I've gotten to know who they actually are. Clearly, from the tone of my letter, it's a very vexing situation, Webo. I find that the letter of yesterday's date, you've read it, and it's just discourteous. It's rude. It, like I said, it has a tone. It has treated customers of the bank like they're just some digits in a system, that we are just an account number. It's as if the bank, they're not dealing with people anymore, human beings. Having said that, though, Webo, I thought I'd call in to express my views about the situation. That's one, and two, to in a way clear the air, meaning that I have had a very good working relationship or relationships with the staff of First Caribbean Nevis, from management down, Jasmine Paris, Arundel Dorr, Rajendai David, and all the others. I don't think there are any persons on Nevis who can honestly say they have had a problem with the professionalism and the courtesy that the staff of First Caribbean, Main Street, Charlestown, gives to the customers. So clearly this attitude by the bank, this decision by the bank, we know has nothing to do with the staff and management at First Caribbean Nevis. So I just wanted to put that on record, that I, as an individual, and I'm sure like it's all the customers on Nevis, have no difficulty with the professionalism of the staff of First Caribbean. We admire the work that they do and the way they treat their customers. I know it's a short night, Webo, so I'm going to finish now. Just to say, I, as a customer, I have been with First Caribbean now, I can't count the years, maybe 30 years. I've had car loans, land loans, property loans with First Caribbean. I now hold a mortgage with First Caribbean. And to be sent a letter just yesterday to say, one, the bank is closing. Two, if you need to do business, you go to St. Kitts. And three, something else, without any niceties. Well, we're sorry for the inconvenience. We appreciate your business. No, nothing, Webo.
You mean even if they didn't?
I'm sorry?
You said something like, for instance, they could have said, we appreciate your business. So I'm asking you mean they could have said that even if they didn't?
Yes, even if they didn't, if they didn't mean it, you know, taking it to yet another level. But come on.
But let me ask this though.
Yes.
You think, and I think Edric was making a point earlier, you think it is a difference in culture because you have indicated that the local staff at the branch, in your view, serve its customers well.
Yes.
But this decision obviously is from the top management, which perhaps don't interact directly with the local customers. So you think it can be a matter of business practices or culture whereby this particular clientele, perhaps, as to use your phrase, needs niceties, but in the sort of other cultures, as far as they might see it, is just manage dollars and cents?
Well, I hear you, Webo, and that could very well be the case. But at the end of the day, I think we as a people, as customers, we are going to have to find ways and means to figure out, well, if this is what it's all about, that because of a difference in culture or whatever, that's the way you treat customers. And if we come to the conclusion, well, because of a culture, you're going to treat customers like nothing, then we as customers, we should make a decision of moving our business elsewhere to a place that is kind of gentler and more sensitive to us as customers and our expectations.
Before they tell you move.
Say that again?
You said we as customers then should move our business to another place, and I just interjected before they tell you to move.
Well,
You're not following me?
Yes, before, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, so I just wanted to, have my two pence on the matter, and I am hoping that this incident in the long run will, if nothing else, open up the eyes of our people and the owners, managers of business entities that apart from the bottom line to running a business of making profits, we must factor in the human factor. We are people, we are human beings, we have feelings. Businesses must treat persons and individuals if they are human beings and not just account holders and account numbers in their computer system, Webo.
Okay,
Thank you.
pretty interesting. Naya?
Yeah, I think they have heard and they're up to lose some customer base based on their approach there. Yes, banks are commercial enterprises, but I mean, they use everyday people to do their business. They need everyday people to do their business. And I think they're erred in a serious way with that type of approach. I don't think there's anybody in their right mind would think, well, it's okay. I mean, you're talking about culture. Maybe you're thinking that somebody across the Caribbean who was involved in the decision making. Well, I hope they know that there's water between St. Kitts and Nevis. 1, 2, and I hope they also knows that as the caller just was saying, we are human beings. We the human factor cannot be erased. Doesn't matter how tough it is. Doesn't matter how expectations are not being fulfilled in terms of the business venture and so forth. You've been dealing with customers over a number of years, and they have an expectation that they would be treated with some level of appreciation. And I mean, that letter doesn't really spell that out at all.
Edric, do you have a contrary view to that?
Well, I was going along and I'm saying flatly that with that size and type of organization, they should have had somebody at a certain level in the human resource department to look at that letter, scrutinize it, criticize it, modify it to the point where it would have met the customer's expectation. In
What
terms
if
of
I were to
correspondence.
say to you it came from the Human Resource Department?
They needed somebody who understood.
So your answer to me to that point will be that you need somebody to
I do not know
understand.
which department he came from.
But I'm saying, what if I were to say to you that the letter, you said they should have gotten somebody in the Human Resource Department, correct? You said that.
Yes, I said
Good.
that. But let me
Now,
just tell
walk
you
with
what I
me.
really wanted to say.
Walk with me. Now, and I said, what if I were to say to you that it came from the Human Resource Department? Then what?
Somebody needs to understand the English language to the point where they up their game and they cover all bases so as to prevent an irate customer like the caller and more. With, with reference to satisfaction in terms of the longevity of time they did business with the institution.
So you don't think it can be a matter of expectation, meaning that where this entity does business in other islands, for instance, they may operate as they did just now, and that customer
not.
base may or may not, but there is a possibility that they may operate the same way, and that customer base may be okay with it because of their expectation. They may look at it, well, did I get my money? Did I get a good interest rate? And so on and so forth. I'm done. I'm satisfied. I'm good.
Well, the lot
Okay,
of
let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Hello?
Hello, good evening, Willow.
Yes, you're on the call. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor as well. Can you call? Did you dial 1700?
You want to change the line then?
Yes. Hang up and
Okay.
call the other
All right.
line, please. Thank you. Okay, like that, Stanley, I could have been able to advise them. You think that's polite and nice enough?
well,
The
sure,
way I dealt with the customer.
right. Look, there are a lot of people in our small, minus third world population that operate at a global level, and to have put in place verbiage that would cover all the bases. We must understand clearly that these banks are here, and they will tell you they don't really make much money on those people who come into the branches from, and as a result,
But that's beside the point, all right?
well, not
Whether they make much or little. So it depends on how much money you make, you'll be courteous.
well, I'm saying to you, I
Hello,
can't tell you
Good
what.
evening. Thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening, Willow.
Yes, that's much better. Go ahead.
The better line is 1616.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Willow, it's time that we as a people realize that the banks are doing business with their best interest in mind. And we too need to do business with them with our best interest in mind. I hopped off commercial banks a while back. I simply do not understand why people continue with the commercial banks the way they're going. We have an indigenous bank. Well, the banks from outside, because they really treat the customers shabby. I hopped off the banks. I kind of closed my account with a particular bank when they started putting their hand in my account without having the common decency of saying something to me. When they sent a letter to say they're going to do it, I sent a letter to the manager, tell them do not do it. And they went and they did it, and I closed my account. Since then, I've had bank clerks asking me, sir, do you not want to to open an account with us. Do you not want to open an account with us? I've had accounts with you before. I've had business accounts with you before. I've had personal accounts with you before. Because you don't think that I'm worth anything. I close the accounts. The only thing I have with them now is a credit card. And that is the way it is. And if I can't go any further with them, I'm closing that too. There's the Bank of Nevis, there's the credit unions. Everybody else, or a national bank. Everybody else, I'm not taking any shabby service from them. I'm not even taking shabby service from the indigenous banks. I hopped off the CIBC bank in the early 80s. I haven't gone back. And people need to know the value of their hand. You have your hand, the banks have their hands, and they need to be able to play the game accordingly, as Edric would say. Mr. Stanley, you started earlier, and you were going on a line where I was getting from you that these banks are so gorgeous that they're bringing such service and they're hiring people and all that. I wonder where you were going with that.
No, I was trying to cover all the bases.
I wondered where you were going with that, Mr. Stanley. Because banks have zero interest for the customers. They got interest for themselves. Every time you turn around, they try to charge you some more money. And if you do not stop them, they go ahead. Number of times they try, and I say no, I'm not having it. And we do not realize that if you do not have an arrangement with them before, they can't do it legally. They cannot do it legally, and they will push you. If you let them push you, you get pushed over. But if you stand up, you'll still use the back down.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Carla, thank you very much. Yes.
Well, I know that the banks do offer good paying jobs, and I was going down that avenue to, again, cover all the bases, but I do not know how offensive that was to this particular caller. But when we look at the employment aspect, most people who work in these institutions, I mean the banking sector.
Yeah, but here's it.
But
I think
there are positives and negatives.
right. But how does it fit into the issue we have at hand? So you are trying to suggest to me that given that they hire a lot of people and pay them well, therefore you should accept.
No,
well, so
that wasn't implied. It was not implied.
So what is implied then? So why you insert that point at this critical juncture?
Simply because
Just to give information on somebody's desk
to cover all the bases.
and put
And
information on
then
the desk.
you come up with the dagger. I said they need to send out a letter of apology to those people who they have sent this particular letter that wasn't completed with reference to the verbiage, to tell people who have dealt with them for the past 30 years, as the customer said, we appreciated your business and so on.
So you think this letter is?
You need to send another letter.
You think this is incomplete?
It is incomplete.
Okay. So you're coming around to agreeing with the same point that Naya is making there.
I am coming around to tell you what I think and to get on the table and to cover the bases as to how businesses should conduct themselves with reference to customers. Because we are, without us, they don't have any business.
Yeah, but here's my point. So it fits into then the environment that you're dealing with and the culture. I am asking, is it possible that you end up with a clash of two different cultures whereby some persons might do business and they might argue, I'm getting a low interest rate, right? People, go in there and I get my money. I get it fast, etc., etc. They could tell me, they can do without telling me thank you, have a nice day or whatever.
Well, there are
Right?
people like that.
Huh?
There are people who actually want the institution to, in fact, use it to put money rather than put it under their bed. All right?
But what I'm saying is, for instance, some people might have a waitress who serve them. They may bring the food, the drink, etc. without a smile or flirt. But you got your food, you got a good price, and then you go home. On the contrary, some persons want the good food, the good price, the good food, and they want a good smile
Exactly.
and a good flirt. So that is what I'm saying. So it just happens that in this case, our customers want that. Right, Naya? That's
No,
your-
not really, but
no.
Webber, I think moving to St. Kitts adds another ingredient to it, that introduce a physical inconvenience, which is fundamental to it all to me. If they were closing the branch and, well, that's it, and the people can come and collect their money and so forth, we probably could have feel that way.
Yeah, but they can. That's an option you have.
Yes, but I believe maybe it just cannot happen that smooth. Maybe it takes more time. I think it's the inconvenience really of moving to St. Kitts really as spelled out in the letter. Yes, I know they can remove their money but I think it's hard to really digest that they have dealt with a level of sensitivity which is expected globally, really. Yes. I think the majority of people in the world would have that expectation. I do think so. You remember we are small communities, and yes, the bank has been there for a long time. I do hope that they are not falling into that kind of mediocrity, that kind of thing we experience so often in Charlestown when we go in and out of the offices. You say good morning, people don't even want to watch you.
So that's the
so
point.
I hope
So
that
we're
type
not dealing
of
with an isolated case.
that type of dealings is not simply applicable to Nevis and Nevis alone. I hope they're not falling into that thing that we talk so much about. If you
So
understand
this
where I'm
case
coming
is not
from.
an isolated case then.
Well, I hope not.
Because
If
the
it is,
last
then
the last
it's major stuff.
comment or statement that you made seemed to suggest that across the board, more often than not, that's the type of service the customers get.
I didn't understand that, what you just said, sorry.
Right. I'm trying to see, because you said you get the feeling that this is just like when you go into a lot of other businesses in Charlestown and you get that type of poor service.
I hope they have not adapt that or catch that, what I may consider
Right.
a disease.
So what I was trying to clarify is whether or not you were suggesting that in Charlestown generally, you go into a business and you get often bad service.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm
and-
suggesting that,
Right.
sorry.
That is what you're suggesting.
Yes.
So I was asking the question then, the rhetorical question. So therefore, this is not an isolated case. Because a lot of other businesses
it is not
treat
really,
their
but
customers
it's still
that
a
way.
case to talk about. It's disrespect, really. And we should never cease to talk about these things if we're expecting better, really, going forward. And that's why I do. I'm not going to hide the fact that in Charlestown, yes, we do get some poor services, in businesses and government offices, And I hope they're not falling prey to that. And then we become, you know what I mean, Mr. Stanley?
Well, what I can say that we understand how the banks operate, and they didn't operate that way over the earlier years, but they have gotten policy in place in thinking that we, the customers, need them more than they need us. Look, the FATCA rule, some people want to ensure that they have a place to put their money. And regardless of what kind of service the banks give them, once they are accommodated, then it's like they're home free. They're comfortable with that. But the banks now know that customers need some place to park their money, need a place to cash their checks and whatever it is, and as a result, they feel that they've got the handle. Whereas in the earlier years, even with the indigenous banks, they operated in terms of who we know you, we expect your business, and come and do business with us. But now they're not even begging for your business. They think that you need them, we need them more than they need us. So I think the attitude has changed slightly.
Yes, it has changed.
It's a two-way street, really. I bring my business to you, you got an entity and you want your business to grow, you want your business to, in fact, be as such that you could say, I started a business and it has grown multiply. In that regard, it is large now. And when you reach a certain stage, it doesn't mean that you should kick the customer who dealt with you 30, 40 years ago.
You think, here's the question, you think Naya reference taking your business to St. Kitts, you think, and the islands are one, so to speak, you think having gotten that type of reception from the way they treated the customers in Nevis might have an adverse effect on their customer base in St. Kitts?
I don't think so.
No? So you think, therefore, they will not behave the same way in St. Kitts?
They will behave, when I say behave the same, I am fully convinced that they believe they have the handle, and then we need them more than they need us.
So in this particular instance, you think that the bank felt that they dealt fairly in the way they dealt with this issue?
I think so, but they erred. They erred, and I am going to say that they should send out a better letter.
From the Human Resource Department?
Not
That's just a light moment.
they should send out a letter to thank all of us who did business with them, as the case might be, and hoping that maybe in the next 20 years they might be back when the population of Nevis would have grown. We have done a marvelous job in certain areas, and who knows, Nevis and St. Kitts as a nation might be a mecca for the banking industry, and they just might return. We are working on that. We are working on that.
You're working on...
I'm talking about the leadership of our country is striving to do so good that we would serve as a model to the rest of the world, hopefully, in many other areas. The coronavirus has taught us something, and based on what we have done, there are other countries envious because of what we have done with reference to the management of the coronavirus that has been bludgeoning so many other big entities, big countries around the world. So, maybe sooner or later, as we get an influx of people with a lot of money, these banks might just return.
Have we done much with the coronavirus or with the preparation for the coronavirus?
Have we done?
I say, have we done much for
the
for the
provision you're
coming,
putting.
or we have done a lot in preparing for it, because we never had a great influx here to see how it's really handled, in a sense.
You didn't have to have an influx, you know. There are people who get sick simply because it is believed it moves in the air. It's airborne.
Let us say
Some
we are
people
doing
believe
fine,
it comes
really.
from
We are
different
doing well.
avenues.
Let us say we are doing well. But I don't think it's time to be boastful about it.
I'm not boasting. I'm not boasting. I'm just
I truly don't think that we are exceptionally have done something quite exceptional more than anyone else at this point. You know,
I disagree with you fundamentally.
I can understand you disagreeing with me.
Yeah, but you don't listen. You don't make comparisons, and you have not come to a conclusion that St. Kitts and Nevis.
What exceptionally we have done?
We don't have any deaths here.
Okay.
That is a barometer by which you can measure. It's measurable. And I'm not trying to.
And we had 17 cases.
We have had cases. People have recovered.
I'm very happy we are doing that well.
This is not by accident.
I'm very happy we are doing that well,
It's
Mr.
not by accident. It's based on the management that has been put in place and the vigilance by which that management utilizes. And as a result, we are doing much better than many. We are at the top of the list. Get real liar. And again, it didn't happen by accident. It's based on the leadership sent out the clarion call, and the people whom they put together as a task force have done a marvelous job to the extent we are almost the envy of the world. And I hope by God's help we'll continue to be.
We're doing well, and I'm very happy we are doing well, but it's not time that we get all relaxed about it right now, because I don't think we have gotten to the point, and we might be getting there pretty soon, because we're opening up, where we have this huge influx, and see how we can really deal with it, deal with the whole isolation, deal with the quarantine, and everything else. You know, the exercise that we've been looking at and seeing it at work to the fullness, you know, and then I probably can make an evaluation of how we are doing. But I think right now, you know, with God's grace and the efforts of the government, we have not seen any deaths, but at the same time, we've been locked down, you know, and we had 17 cases. I don't think it's time at all to be boastful about anything. 19 cases.
Yeah. Okay, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding. Good evening on the air. I'm going to ask our callers to call 1616. Yes, go ahead.
Good night.
Go ahead.
Good night. What's your right? Never mind that no Kobe get right. Or people are dead in Nevis and say get all the time. So, I mean, those supposed to break and say, Boston.
Okay, enjoy. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, let me get a break and come back with our remaining minutes with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Naya Liebert. Caller, I'm going to ask you if you're going to call for tonight at least until we get the other line organized. Please call 1616 469 1616. We seem to have a problem on the other line. Back after these.
Builders Paradise is doing it again by offering a blowout sale on granite, cheaper than tiles and Formica on your counter. The man has gone crazy again. A full slab of granite is on sale for as little as $599.99. Yes! Builders Paradise also offers a special delivery for your granite. So make use of this golden opportunity while stocks last. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site, St. Kitts, or call them at 466-4938 so they can help you complete your home. Builders Paradise, where your island dreams come true.
Hey, St. Kitts, keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Back on this episode of Talk That Gets Results. Our remaining minutes with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Live with your phone calls on 869-469-1616. For tonight, we have a problem on the other line. Caller, the first caller, if you're still with us, you can give us a call now. You had something you'd like to discuss. So, okay, but quickly, anything else, Edric?
UNICEF. And I am somewhat taken aback simply because I didn't have any children under 18 living with me, because I really would have liked to have been in conversation with them as to what they truly wanted. But I think they were calling with reference to COVID-19 and as to how it has affected my household. But because I didn't have anybody under 18, they said okay. And I believe, of course, they've called many households within St. Kitts Nevis. But that is telling. It tells you that we are on the global ladder and we are recognized. Well, that's just my short comment on that.
Naya.
Yes, we are on they're obviously trying to create a database, which is good. I suppose the policies can be derived from these kind of communication. So I haven't heard anybody say they had a call, really, from UNICEF. So I'm not aware of that.
I'm hoping now that schools are open and the children are back in school, I'm hoping that the same type of management and protocol that had been put in place to keep the nation safe, that our teachers and other educational personnel would be brought to the fore for our children to, in fact, do well as they have done over the many years, because this is a completely different kettle of fish with reference to education and educating our children. With this COVID-19 and the effect of COVID-19, I'm hoping...
Okay, Edric, let me take this call to see if there's that. Good evening,
Hello?
Thank you for holding.
Yes?
Good evening, you're on the air.
I'm asking a question, please. When is something or like a storm, a tropical wave passing by to Nevis?
Yes, a tropical wave is moving through the area, yes.
A tropical wave is moving to the area?
Yes.
When it get like this?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes, who did I... Edric?
Let us bring another little point to the fore. I got on the news that the prisoners have been in school and they've got maybe 29 passes CXC at the CXC level, which is commendable. It means that even though some of them are on lockdown because of what they've done, they still got the expectation to get back into society, and therefore they're in prison, but yet they are studying academically with reference to get up from the first rung of the ladder and climb the ladder of mobility, which I'm hoping that we would have more passes next time around. Well, it's just another short comment.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that aspect of imprisonment, rehabilitation is very important. I'm happy to hear that. And one thing I want to also to say that they should be able to vote. They should be able to vote. Voting is a human right, and that's something I think St. Kitts Nevis government must look into in a very serious way. Prisoners have the right to vote during an election, because the government affects them as it affects everyone else. that is something they need to really look into very serious. But rehabilitation, in terms of giving them the opportunity to be educated, is the best thing, because they're locked down, they're sitting in the cell. Really, they can apply the time to something positive. Even though it's not easy to inside there, but you have time. So if you can really put your head down, that'll be a great thing. And as Stanley says, it's the first step, up the ladder to come back out to deal with society. But remember, we the people outside here have to give them that opportunity. We have to seriously give them that, because too many people come out of prison and they're even afraid to approach those who have employment. And so that initiative in prison of trying to become educated and earn some qualification must be also met, by that willingness, by we the people who can employ them to do so.
Okay, now I just, as we got a few minutes left, I just wanted to mention something here, right? And put a light moment with it. Someone asked me to pick up something today, right? And when I opened it, it was this, right? This beautiful clock. I suppose it came around Independence time. Edru, can you describe it?
Well, it has the national flag, and of course, around Independence Day, which is one of the time that I truly appreciate.
The clock, Edric, the clock.
The clock says 8 o'clock.
No, but okay. So you describe the clock. It's a beautiful clock.
It's a beautiful clock, and it has the national colors in terms of the frame. It's about a foot by a foot square.
So it was donated by one of our great listeners. I don't know, maybe I'll ask him permission to give me his name, because I don't know, it's strange. How people, when they do nice things, sometimes they say, don't call me name. You know what I'm saying? So I'll find out if
need to do a lot and they don't want to be mentioned.
But that's not good, because
it's good.
Yeah, it's good to do that. But sometimes they like to say, don't call my name. Well, anyway, so when I realized it was a clock, I was telling the staff that I got real excited, because I realized it was like a special design and delivery. And years ago, Myers and I, Albert Myers, when we saw how difficult it is for people to have time, and it was such a scarce commodity, we were working on developing a 13-hour clock. So I thought this might have been it.
A 13-hour
A 13-hour clock, because a fellow was here, technician was here today, and he was so pressed for time. He turned to one of the other workers and asked, do you know anybody who sells time? And that is the problem Albert Myers and I were trying to solve. So we were trying to create a 13-hour clock. I still have the idea in mind. You think we'll get it done?
You can.
I figured you'll say that. Anyway, so we want to thank the gentleman and his family or his team or his group for that.
It's creative, very creative.
Yes.
Very creative, and it looks good. It's a nice design, and it's attractive, very attractive.
Yes, I read you wrong this time, Stanley. This is another light moment. When I played the song the other time, remember when I played the song?
Well,
about a week or two ago.
Yes.
And you found out who sang it. You went off on the singer.
Well, you have to give comments and
okay.
Possibly.
All right. So anyway, we'll be making way for a program. But any final things you want to mention?
Well, I'm hoping that based on what you brought to the fore this evening, Webo, that the people who are in First Caribbean would have heard what we said on the radio tonight and would have made some effort, would make some effort to reach out to the many customers that they have somewhat abandoned, and to make amends and to send a much better letter that would soothe the pain and emotion that this first letter they sent out has caused. And therefore, it's an obligation, I believe it's an obligation on their part to, in fact, do a piece of correspondence that would cover the whole 9 yards. Sure, you have to leave. We do not know all the dynamics with reference to why you have to leave Nevis, but it does create a hardship, as we have said, and therefore, see if you could go back to the drawing board, get a letter that is more nicely composed, and send it back to your customers, especially the one who wrote this letter, which wound up here during our discussion this evening.
And also to those of us who endorsed this same letter that the customer sent.
Quite true.
Include, notice I say those of us who endorsed it.
Quite true.
Yeah, you see, what happens is you get a lot of this grumbling all the time. And I've had conversation with persons who might be maybe of a small financial base to large financial bases and complain sometimes about the treatment by the financial institutions. You know, and so this is a culmination and a public expression of what some of the stuff that you've been hearing.
Well, ultimately, this actually came to fruition. When I say fruition, it's reality. The banks spent many years here. They've made a certain amount of money, and they've done a certain amount of help within the community too, with mortgages and car loans, student loans, as the case might be. But at the same time, they've got a corporate responsibility to do things right, and they must be focused on doing things right at all times. Again, it's good for their image, and it's good for their longevity. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street. Customers and business. They have an obligation to get it right. And I hope, with our comment this evening, they will attempt to get it right. And they're still in St. Kitts, still within our nation. And as a result, I hope that this might just be a temporary closure, with the expectation that when the current or the financial situation gets better.
Let us say permanently.
Well, they say permanently, but that the world hasn't ended. And therefore, as I said, who knows? We might have a flood of money coming in here, and they might just decide to return. I've seen entities that moved and they had to take a 180-degree turn in a very, very short period of time. So I'm not ruling that out with First Caribbean, hoping that they'll be able to understand that the people whom they served over a number of years, and I mentioned that these are people who actually banked at Barclays, and they were able to have brought them over to First Caribbean, and as a result, that's a long-term relationship between the customers and that financial institution.
But since the COVID see the plight of a lot of customers, customers care or lack of it. Well, because people are out paying their bills and they got to line up outside, and I do get sorry for them in the sun sometimes, to be quite honest. Sometimes I wonder if these business places can provide a tent or something, like credit union does. National Bank, wow. To go to National Bank in the morning, you got to endure a lot of sun, a lot of standing, suffering in the sun. No tent is provided. And a few places where, well, I realize how much the customers have to go through. Sometimes to pay their bill, and, I see customers faint. I see the ambulance have to come for people. But, we got to get there. They got our money in there. We need the money. Sometimes when we go to pay bill, we got to pay the bill. Otherwise, we're going to be cut off. Quite a pressure in sometimes. And sometimes all I see is, really, I wonder if they do care of these people are really standing in the sun for such a long time, and it makes me wonder about customer care. Really, how far does that go here on Ireland? But I know you can't, do it all. But sometimes I think I wonder if it crosses their mind that they got this long line of people go all one corner, standing in the sun, really, really sticking up to, and they are their customers. And so, when these things happen, appreciation must be exhibited. And that's all, the caller is asking for. He's entitled, we are entitled as customers of that bank. They've been using our money all the time, investing our money. And hardship come and they're running off, and they don't show the respect and the appreciation, make us feel quite irrelevant. Yeah, that's not good at all. That's not good at all. Let's hope, as I say, that they have not fall into the Charlestown syndrome. And, send a better letter out. Send a better letter out to the people. It wouldn't have reached foreign rage if it wasn't a slight vex situation. And it's almost across the board, nationwide concern. You need to really correct that. It can be corrected. Why not? Apologize. We're humans. And we have an expectation. Been serving you well all the time. And you have been serving us well too. So there was good relations, but I don't know how things get that sour that you can write such an abrupt letter that tends to transcend lack of care, the whole feeling of lack of care and lack of relevance to we the customer. So got a good chance to pick yourself up, First Caribbean. You've been a good bank. You've been a good bank to us. I remember. I have not really observed the line of people, and I have not really seen a panic in town. I hope it doesn't get to that. I don't think it will get to that.
Quickly before we go. I just, as Naya was mentioning that, Naya, it's interesting, but quite a number of persons, remember when you were here the last time, and you pointed out that little bit of history with your dad, and the PDP and stuff, and awesome number of persons told me that was so refreshing because they didn't know. And that, as I said, these things are very important, and it will be interesting to know whether or not, or how people would react if they were to know a lot of the history.
It needs to be told about. It would mean so much for Nevis, because that's a time when there was such Nevis and pride. We were so proud and willing to die for Nevis. It needs to be told. It's the part of Nevis.
But that's the problem. Everybody keeps saying it needs to be told.
Yeah.
And I ask you a question: Who
can tell it?
Yes.
Well, Webo, there is people who can in a formal way. We write our own curriculum, I suppose, in school. We can always fit these things in, we got to take initiative. Why not? I mean, who they expect going to teach the kids about it? I can only say this on the radio because I know a bit of history, but in a formal way, it can be written. There are good books that we can read, that the people can read and know more. But of course, it must be widespread knowledge. Otherwise, we won't have no pride in this island. A country without a history is what? And the history was so profound and is so profound, and it still remains so relevant today.
You're sure it. I mean, the rancor, of course, based on history, it is there. But the objective was to separate.
You know,
And eventually, maybe in the wisdom of one or a few, or the lack thereof, they found that it was not the right thing to do, and consequently, it didn't happen.
but listen, a debate with the
And
Antigua.
I am hoping that we will arrive at a certain juncture where we would recognize what didn't transpire in terms of the expectation of the separation. We would
I would like to say this.
Eventually.
It's interesting.
reap the reward of unity. Because I am convinced that if we are able to get the right people with the right thinking, the right cooperation, things going to be so beneficial to all of us. And I can't see where the fallacy of separation can benefit us.
Let me ask you this, Edric.
Yes.
You see the fallacy of the separation of Brexit benefiting anyone?
I felt that Brexit was a terrible occurrence. I still believe it.
Okay, so the short answer to the question is you can't see it benefiting anyone.
You have to make a complete comparison, Weber, meaning,
I'm not comparing anything.
meaning that you might have 49% negative and 51% positive. So it's not all bad. But it
So
doesn't mean it
Brexit
rises
Brexit is not all bad.
no, but it
So
doesn't
it
mean it
will
rises to the level of all good either. So the wheat and the tear, they go together. Those people who saw what they wanted out of Brexit, it is very likely that the chickens might come home to roost, which they wouldn't like.
Right,
So we will see.
right. Now, to go back to what you were talking about earlier, would you apply the same scenario that you just applied to this situation?
If you are talking about what Naya is attempting to propose or regurgitate, I am saying to you that I do not think it's the wind that will blow us all the good. I think it was an ill wind then. I still think it's an ill wind now. And therefore, although it is important for us to understand the history and the relationship among those who were the opponents or the proponents, as the case might be, it is good for our people to learn from the history. But at the same time, we must make the comparison as to where we are, where we would have been or could have been had things occurred differently. Because I could tell you, we have made some giant leaps forward in a positive way. And when we look around us, we see it. And I cannot applaud those who attempted to bring division.
No, we would have been
And
seeing
therefore-
more. We would have been seeing more. There's that argument to Mr. Stanley. We would have been seeing more if we was secede from St. Kitts. Well, interestingly, I listening to a debate in Antigua Parliament, and Barbuda is on about the same thing. Barbuda can't handle it no more. They're thinking about separate future.
That's it.
Going forward. In fact, in the same debate, it was interesting because when the Antigua man stand up to talk, he said to prevent what happened to Nevis and Tobago to happen with Barbuda, we must try to encourage, words to the effect, more business, meaning that they so that they can bring more money to the treasury. Words to that effect. And it makes me laugh. It makes me laugh, really. It's an interesting thing.
That's the last word for this evening. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. We now bring you live coverage of the 22nd weekly installment of Leadership Matters, which is a virtual forum series hosted by the government of St. Kitts and Nevis. On the panel will be Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Timothy Harris, along with Minister of the Environment and Cooperatives, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, and Chairman of the Development Control and Planning Board, Mr. Calvin Pemberton. We now go to that program.
Work together, our two countries can continue to work together. I know in accepting the gifts on behalf of the Ministry of Health, the High Commission would have also alluded to other support in which they would be able to gladly